So along those lines, do we want to talk for just a few minutes about potential federal land protections?
I don't know if that was directed at me, but yeah, I think that we certainly have, I guess I'll back up and put a little context to this, but I mean, Save Our Canyons has been advocating for protection of areas in the Central Wasatch Mountains now for quite some time. We've tried and have quite frankly we've failed. You know, we had the Wasatch Wilderness and Watershed Protection Act most recently, you know, reintroduced 3 times to Congress to no avail, and for political reasons, for sure. Congress is a political body, and you know, we've kicked out ideas to then work around Congress. The idea of the notion of a national monument or something like that in the Central Wasatch is, you know, I think is an option. And we've been trying to think big about how do we secure protections for this place. And you know, in the next week, we're kicking off a federal designations task force. Is everything a task force in Mountain Accord?
Unless it's a committee.
Unless it's a committee? Oh, okay. We'll figure out what the difference between those two are later. But yeah, I mean, we'll engage with some of those. Many designations, they have their pros and their cons to them, right? Wilderness, you know, the wilderness proposal, we got creative with boundaries to make sure that we were respecting existing mountain bike trails, but still protecting the land, because that's the goal. So I think we're gonna consider a number of different land designations. We have members of Utah's congressional delegation, I think, that are gonna participate in this. It's great to see them entertaining doing some sweeping conservation of this really unique environment. And quite frankly, that's one of the things that has continually attracted us to the Mountain Accord process. It is super important and a unique opportunity with a very, very narrow window.
It's been referenced here in terms of federal designations, and I think our not only assumption, but really I think people view it as a goal across the board, is that coming out of this process there will be additional federal designations for federal land that will further assure protection of these lands that would be under federal ownership, federal management. So as was mentioned, as part of an outcome, I think we're hoping that this federal designations task force will come up with the specific recommendations. Carl mentioned that the Wasatch Wilderness and Watershed Protection Bill that was introduced over at least a couple of Congresses did represent a strong consensus among everyone, really the same group of folks who are at this table, but it just did not receive congressional action. In the Mountain Accord process, the congressional delegation has been participating with us from the very beginning, and every indication as recently as last week in some of my meetings with members of our congressional delegation is they are awaiting the outcome of this effort, and if they're and want to be helpful to implement the outcome of this effort. So our expectation is, I think across the board, is that if we can come up with something, very quickly there will be proposals introduced in this Congress for action.
Okay, we're almost out of time here, but one last question pertaining to when will all